Okay, there we go. All right, what's up, guys? VV back with another video. And in today's video, we got another truck talk. And we got a pretty fun topic, a pretty scary topic, an interesting topic to talk about today. Is the One Piece trading card game dying? Now, some people might have no idea where this kind of conversation has come from, but I think there's a lot of stuff going on in the community right now. People have been putting videos out on this. It's, all over the place, saying that OP13 might end up, destroying the game, ruining it, and causing people to quit and things like that. So we're going to be talking about that in today's video. And of course, guys, I'm always curious to hear what you guys have to say about it in the comment section below. But let me just say this, please be respectful. That's the only thing I ask. I want to know where y'all stand on all this stuff we're going to talk about today, but let's just keep it polite down there, okay? So let's do this, guys. Let's get into it. I'm going to be breaking it down into three categories because there's three different kind of aspects of every card game, three different kinds of players. That's probably a better way to say this. There are the more casual players, there are the collectors, and then there are the competitors. Okay, so there's like three, and there's probably some in-betweens in there as well, like some casual players who might be thinking about becoming competitive, collectors who are also casual players of the game and things like that, right there. I'm sure there's a bunch of in-between stuff. And there might be some people who are just all around, like they play casually, in their local scene, but they love going to big tournaments and they collect all the cards. Who knows, right? But we're going to break it down into those three main categories. And we're going to go from there. So I will have everything time-stamped in the general description, guys, and I'll have all relevant links and stuff like that in the comment section below. If you guys have any comments, questions, or suggestions, please do not hesitate to put those down in the comment section below or hop on the VB Theory Discord. Link will be in the channel description. This video is brought to you by Nin Garden. Pre-orders are now open for the Journey's End playmat featuring the Pirate King, with a 1 in 20 chance to pull the special Wanted Bounty variant. Plus, the Chaos and Crown collection, including the Berserk and Absolute Ruler playmats, are available at a discounted price. Nin Garden is also introducing their new soft cloth hybrid playmats, now available with select designs. And don't forget to use the code TheVVTheory at the checkout to get 8% off on your next order. All right, guys, so let's get into this. First off, so do I think, let me just get this out of the way up front here, guys. Do I think that the One Piece trading card game is dying? No, I don't. I actually think that the One Piece trading card game is doing incredibly well. There's always going to be a few voices in the community and on, in the socials and things like that, that are going to be voicing their opinion on a format that they don't like. And that's fair. You're allowed to do that, right? You're allowed to say whatever you want to. If you don't like a certain format or a certain card or a whatever, right? Hey, by all means, say something about it, right? However, I think the One Piece trading card game is far from dying off or whatever. So now let's go ahead and break it down into these different categories. So the first one I want to talk about is like the casual player experience. So guys, you have to understand that there's so many different players within a game, right? There's so many different kinds of players. But I think the overwhelming majority of players in a game, or at least what needs to be the overwhelming majority, is just the casual player base. The people who aren't trying to go to big tournaments, the people who might collect cards a little bit on the side, just for like their favorite leader or their favorite deck or whatever. And they're just trying to enjoy the game and have fun and play it, right? And they probably play on the sim a lot as well. And those players, typically speaking, are very, I think the word I want to use is malleable. Like, they'll just kind of play what they want to play, right? For example, like, say you're playing on the sim, right? Say, there's people who still play like Black, Yellow, Linlin. There's people who still want to play Purple, Black, King. There's people who still want to play all these decks that are, way low on the totem pole, right? As far as like power level goes. And there's nothing wrong with that. They're just a casual player. They're just trying to have fun and enjoy the game. And I'll tell you right now, whenever these new leaders come out, they probably just avoid those leaders on the ladder, right? They'll avoid those leaders on the sim, is what I'm trying to say. And those players, they're going to go to their local scenes. They might even talk to their local, tournament organizers and local gaming stores and be like, hey, can we have like an off meta night every now and then? I just want to like play something that's not meta. And they might still play meta. There's casual players out there, guys, who will even still play the meta leaders, especially if it's a character in whatever the game it is they're playing. If it's like a character they really like, they might even play the meta leaders, right? Casual players are very malleable. I think that's the best word I can use to explain them. They're kind of just going to keep playing the game because they love the game. I would say the casual players are basically just like the hardcore One Piece fans, or just the fans of good card games. Like in the case of One Piece, that's kind of where I'm at. Like I'm in a slightly separate category as a content creator. But as far as if I were not a content creator for this game and I was working a normal 9-to-5 job, I would be, playing this game very casually. I would not be competitive or anything like that. I consider myself more like a family man, right? I've got kids and stuff. I don't have time to go competing, and I don't really like collecting. We'll talk about collectors in just a minute. But I would just be playing this game casually because I legitimately think this is the best trading card game on the market. I've been on record saying that many times, I think now. And I legitimately think that. Coming from a Magic the Gathering background, I've played a lot of different card games. Hang on, let me fix this. I've played a lot of different card games over time. And I have to tell you guys right now that, I think One Piece is it. I think One Piece, like as far as like a mechanically, and fundamental, standpoint, I think it's the best card game out there, and I think it's like the best card game there's ever been. And that's coming from Magic the Gathering experience. That's coming from L5R, that stands for Legend of the Five Rings, Flesh and Blood, Hearthstone. I've even messed with Gundam now. I've messed with Riftbound. I think Riftbound has a chance to get into that category. I'm not going to lie, Riftbound is nice. But I think all things considered, just considering like how cheap One Piece is, how good the mechanics are in general, and how just fun the game is to play and how mechanically sound it is. I mean, One Piece is it for me, guys. It's such a nice game, and it has a big enough IP where the game is very large, and it's going to always attract newer, younger players because of what One Piece is, which is geared more, it's not geared only towards little kids, obviously, but with it being an anime, kids fall into that naturally. So, where was I going with all this? Oh, I was saying I would be more of a casual player, right? Because I just think this is a good card game. Like, it's just that simple for me. Now, yes, I do need to talk a little bit before we move on to the collectors. While we're still on the casual talk, I do want to talk about how power creep can affect even casual players, of course. And let me also say this while I'm thinking about it. I understand all sides of these conversations of like, oh, the game's dying, or, oh, the game's fine. Like, I see where like every party's coming from, because the power creep in some of these leaders it's extreme, right? Let's just be honest. Let's call it for what it is. The power creep with some of these leaders is pretty insane. And who knows, maybe in the future there needs to be like off meta nights for locals and stuff like that for the casual players to keep them interested and to keep them, having fun with the game. Because I will say, the power creep on some of these most recent leaders, it's pretty wild, guys. There's no doubt to be had there. There's no doubt about that. Emu, I personally think it started roughly around OP11. That's just me personally. And I'm like a rogue deck builder, right? That's like my thing, is I love building rogue decks. I'll play meta if from time to time, not very often, only if I have to, if I'm being honest, but I'll play it. But I like to play off meta. I get a thrill out of making a deck work that, theoretically should not work. I like to push leaders and decks and designs and stuff like that to that level. It's fun to me. It's exciting, right? It keeps me interested in games. And I have to tell you guys right now, it's never been more exciting in the One Piece trading card game than right now, because trying to beat some of these leaders feels impossible for these off meta rogue decks, which is fine. It's also kind of fine in some ways. Because, how do I say this? There's a lot of leaders in this game. There's, about 123 if you count the promos and stuff like that. There's about 123 leaders if you count the promos, and OP14 coming out. I believe there's 123 leaders in the game right now. Now, yes, rotations will clean some of that up. However, that's a lot of leaders to balance. So you can see where Bandai's coming from, right? It's like, okay, how are we supposed to keep all these leaders relevant while keeping new powerful cards coming into the game that's going to influence people to buy these newer sets? It's a hard balance. I don't envy their position there. I mean, I would have done things slightly different, and I've talked about it randomly in my streams and in videos and things like that. I would have handled things a bit differently, but okay, here we are, right? We have to deal with what we have right now. We have to, here we are in the present. So moving forward, I think I think OP13 Sorry we're all over the place, guys. Y'all just bear with me. But I think OP13 was something they decided, okay, we need to push things to a certain level, and then we're going to plateau it right there. And I think that's where we are right now. And it's going to be uncomfortable, and it's going to, it's going to line up, with a rotation. And I've heard a lot of people even saying, like, well, what's the need of a rotation if all these old leaders aren't even good enough anymore? And I hear what you're saying, but it's more or less for the newer players, guys. Rotations aren't just for game balance. They are for game balance as well. But they're also for new players, right? Because whenever you have all these old cards, Bandai doesn't want to keep reprinting older cards. And if a lot of these older cards stay relevant, like if there's like a random card that survives from an older set, it ends up making the price insane on it and stuff like that. I don't want to get too much into that. That's like its own rabbit trail to follow, but yeah. Rotations are coming in line exactly with this power creep, and it starts feeling like, oh, there's no point. What's the point in having power creep, or excuse me, and having rotation if the power creep's going to push all these leaders out of the game? And like I said, it's for a multitude of reasons. But hear me out. With all this stuff going on right now, right? Okay, I'm kind of all over the place right now, guys, because there's so many different angles to consider here. When it comes to the game of One Piece, we've kind of hit this plateau with OP13, I think. We hit this new power spike at 13, but it looks like if you look at the 14 spoilers, the OP14 spoilers, it looks like that's exactly where they want the game to be at, is right where OP13 is. So which is block 4. So I think that's where they're going to try to plateau the game moving forwards. And I think they did that for a few other reasons as well, to get the game to a certain power level where they can make more interesting card designs. Because I think where the power level was in the game, like from block 3 and before, it wasn't quite where it needed to be, where they want leaders and how they want board interactions to be, and like crews fighting other crews. Things weren't quite where they needed to be at. And I think now they will be. I think now that we're at OP13 and we're in block 4, I think that's exactly where they want it. So now let me just wrap up this whole point on casuals, guys, because like I said, I'm kind of just ranting, and I could talk about this for hours. But let me just say it like this. I think the casual players are going to be fine with how things go moving forward in, with OP 13, 14, 15, and so on. They'll probably just play because they love the game, right? And yes, they will be affected. That's where all this came from. Okay, we came back full circle. They will be affected, of course, by certain leaders being too strong. That will frustrate them for sure. But at the same time, that's where like off-meta nights and secondary game modes could come in very nice for those players, right? Because we know how Magic the Gathering is now with all the Commander players and stuff like that. It'd be really cool if One Piece had like official nights for a format like what I've put together with the community called 3C2L. I'm actually a huge fan of this whole idea of like a singleton type of format, and I'll try to link something in the comment section below, guys, on this other format that I've put together, again, with the help of the community and things like that. It's called 3C2L. That stands for 3 colors, 2 leaders. And it is a 2-leader format. Like, you have 2 leaders, and you get to use 3 colors mixed between the leaders, and they have to share the types of the leaders, and then it has to be, and it's going to be a singleton format. So, like, that opens up, like, these whole new avenues for the casual players to still enjoy the game, even when power creep gets a little bit out of control, right? Okay, so that's casual players. Now, the second thing we need to talk about are the collectors. This will probably be a much shorter point here, guys, but collectors are only going to be happy for like probably 2 reasons, right? Number 1, they need enough rare cards to be able to collect, within reason. Probably not too many rare cards, or it starts to get overwhelming. But number 2 is as long as the market's moving, right? So they want to have a bunch of rare cards they can collect, in each enough like frequency in the sets with rare cards in them for them to collect every set to keep their thing going, right? To keep their stores going, probably more than likely, because I'm sure a lot of collectors also might have stores on the side, or who knows, maybe there's 2 different sides of that, like collectors that buy and collectors that sell and collectors in between somewhere. Who knows? But whatever the case is, as long as the game is alive and thriving, they're going to be pretty happy with however things go, as long as they can keep getting their hands on these really cool, unique, special cards, these super rare cards. And like I said, that's probably almost all we're going to talk about when it comes to the collectors, guys. I'm not a collector, but at the same time, I kind of am. I'm like a pseudo collector, because whenever a new set comes out, I will get a full play set of every single card. 1 of every leader, 1 of every new Dawn that comes out, not like Gold Dawn. I'll talk about that in a second with Altarts. And then I'll get a 4-of playset of every single card that comes out, but I don't collect any alt arts. So for example, I want one of every single Dawn, even in the PRB packs, of just the base standard level Dawn, so that I have one of those in my collection, and then 4 of every card for a playset, for a full playset. And again, no alt arts, no special rares or super parallels or mangas or anything like that. I just want a full playset of every single card available to me. And 1 leader, of course. I just need 1 leader. So, or, one of each leader is what I'm trying to say. So that way I have a full collection. And that's something I've been working on, and I have I'm pretty much done with now, going up to block. I'm fully collected. I think I've collected every card in the game as a 4-of playset at base rarity up to block 3. Like, I have all of them, I think, except a few cards, 2 of the EB02, 6 cost purple Luffy, the secret. But I think I'm going to be getting those soon, because the price is in a pretty decent spot now with the reprints. So I am like a pseudo collector. So as long as the game is affordable enough for me in that way, I'm pretty happy about it. But I'm not like one of the big super collectors out there who has like every single, rarity of every card and things like that, which I think is very cool, right? That's like its own thing in the game. And guys, with the way that the One Piece IP is, sorry guys, let me situate this camera. There we go. With the way that the One Piece franchise is, and the way the IP is, and how big the game is and all that, like, I think they're going to be pretty happy, right? So I think the casuals are okay. The casuals will probably have something to complain about with, the power creep of certain leaders. They can't play all the leaders they used to play unless it's in some type of off-meta format. But I think they'll find ways to adapt, especially, with using the sim and whatnot. And then I think the collectors are going to be just fine, because I don't even think this affects them really at all, as long as the game stays popular and thriving. Last but not least, we got to talk about the competitors. And guys, I have to say, this new format for competitors doesn't seem that bad to me. It doesn't really seem that bad to me, because from what I've, just from being around very competitive players, a lot of them don't like what's called a jungle format, where you just have like 10. You have like 10 leaders that can all compete. A lot of competitors don't like that in a best of one, single elimination, right? Best of one type of game with no pre-sideboard. A lot of them don't like having 20 different decks to worry about, because what ends up happening there is like, okay, how do I prepare for all these leaders? And the answer is it's kind of impossible, right? You almost have to just get lucky in your pairings and things like that. And no one likes that. Now, don't get me wrong. I think there's a way to fix that in the future, because I do prefer the jungle format as long as there is a pre-sideboard available. So that way I can have a pre-sideboard where I can adjust for each leader. And the way that would work, I've explained this many times, so my apologies if you've already heard me talk about this, but the way that would work is like how Flesh and Blood handles it. Flesh and Blood is a best of one game, always. It's always best of one, even in their world championships. There's never a best of 3 or a best of 5, best of 7, whatever. No, it's a best of 1. Okay, and the way that works, and is still balanced, is in that game. So in that game, you can have a 60 card deck minimum, but here's how it works. They have an 80 card pool, to choose from at the beginning of each game. You sit down across from your opponent, you say, hey, how you doing? Good luck. And you roll the, you both show what leaders you're running. You roll the dice to see if you want to go first or second, or I might have that backwards, whatever the case is. Before you start shuffling your deck up, you're going to make adjustments to your deck before the game starts based on the leader you're playing against. Do you see what I'm saying? So in other words, if I sit down from another player and I see, oh, they're playing an aggro deck. Okay, well, I'm going to take a few cards out of the card pool that I have, this 80 card pool, like it is in Flesh and Blood, and I'm gonna drop down to 60 cards, getting rid of my slower cards so I can deal better with the aggro deck, okay? Or whatever the case might be. So One Piece could do the same thing. So in the game of One Piece, it's a 50 card deck, right? Okay, well, give us a 60 card pool or a 70 card pool and let us drop it down to 50 cards from there and go from there. You see what I'm saying? So in other words, if I'm playing against Emu, okay, well, all my removals probably not going to be very good against them, so I'll just take that all out and put in the stuff that might actually help me against them. Hopefully that makes sense. So again, I do prefer a more jungle style meta. They call it a jungle meta, where you could just run into anything out there, right? I do prefer that when it's handled properly, even in a best of one type of situation where there's pre-sideboarding. I think that's excellent. I think that's like the way to go. That's the future of the game, in my personal opinion. And once One Piece is caught up with the East, like once the West is caught up with the East, that's going to be my next big driving point with Bandai is, hey, we have to have And when it comes to competitive play, like at a local setting, it's not quite as important. But in a more competitive scene, we have to have a pre-sideboard if we're going to be best of one. And that's fine. I want it to stay best of one too, by the way. I think that's perfect. I don't want to do a best of three. That's just me personally because of the pacing of One Piece. I need it to be a best of one. I just need to have a pre-sideboard. So, kind of went off on a tangent there, guys, but hear me out. For the more competitive players in the game right now, think about it like this. In OP13, I think there's really 5 leaders, guys, that kind of just hold everything down. You have Black Emu, you have Red Blue Ace, you have Blue Purple Luffy as soon as we get the 8-cost promo Roger, and then you have Red Purple Roger, and then you have, which one am I forgetting? Green Zoro. Those are like the 5. Those are the 5 main leaders to worry about. And then you do have a few other random decks on the side that you might expect. You got to be careful of, like Red Black Sabo could pop up, or Red Silver's Rayleigh, or maybe Green Purple Luffy. So, like, you know, there are all these, there's a lot of options, guys. There's actually more options than you might think. There's actually a lot of options currently that are fairly competitive. Like, yeah, there's probably 3 that are the top dogs right now. I would consider the top dogs in OP13 to be Red Blue Ace, Black Emu, and Green Zoro. Okay, those are the 3 top dogs in my opinion, and then everything else after that is kind of just trying to make their way in the meta. But that's a pretty decent amount of options I said right there, guys. You know, if you think about it like this, guys, in this game, going into OP13, which a lot of people think like, oh, it's going to be busted because certain leaders are totally overpowered or whatever, you know, certain, you know, like with what we just said with the top 3 there, it's like, yeah, those 3 exist, but there's also a few other leaders, and I didn't name all of them, by the way. There's other competitors out there too. Like, I think, who knows, hey, if the West ever gets all the promo cards they need for Blue Yellow Nami, maybe Blue Yellow Nami can make a scene, right? But hear me out. You've got, you know, like I said, Blue Purple Luffy, and not counting the top 3. You have Blue Purple Luffy, you have Red Black Sabo, you have Red Purple Roger, you have Red Silver's Rayleigh, and then in yellow, there's always like a few decks that can kind of linger around. I feel like yellow's struggling right now. I've said that before. But I also think Black Yellow Koala is kind of underexplored. I think Green Blue Zoro and Sanji has a chance. I think there's a few leaders out there, guys, that can actually get the job done at the highest level in OP13. And yeah, sure, that'd be nice if there were more options, but that's quite a few options we just listed right there, right? I think that has a color representation across the board, right? Like for red, you have Red Silver's Rayleigh or Red Blue Ace. For green, you have, you know, Bonnie's another one I didn't mention. I think Bonnie's kind of decent, but you have Bonnie and Zoro. And maybe even Green Purple Luffy, even though that one's more purple. For blue, you have Red Blue Ace and Blue Purple Luffy, and maybe even Blue Doflamingo. Blue Doflamingo can kind of sneak wins in OP13, guys. It kind of can sneak wins because it can be very aggressive. And then you have Blue Purple Luffy, like I was saying, and Red Blue Ace. And then going into purple, you have Green Purple Luffy. I think even Purple Luffy starting to make a rise. And Blue Purple Luffy, of course, too. And then you have, in black, you have Emu. And some people, I think, are saying that Blackbeard might have a chance. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. But I think Gecko Moria is a dark horse in this format, an underdog, but can still make something happen. And I also think Red Black Sabo's decent, and even Black Yellow Koala could be decent. I also want to mention one more thing in black. If it were not for Emu, I think Lucci would still be a absolutely solid, you know, competitive leader. But Emu does exist, so that kind of throws a wrench in the gears there. Okay. And then for yellow, like I said, yellow's kind of struggling right now, but there are still very hardcore NL players out there. It's not the best right now, but I'm just saying they exist. Yellow Eustace Kid, yellow Calgara. You know, there's some decks out there that are just kind of decent. They're not the greatest, but they, you know, who knows? Maybe even Red Yellow Bella Betty, maybe an aggressive version of Red Yellow Sabo. I don't know. I'm always trying to make Blue Yellow Ace work. Black Yellow Luffy players, maybe. Who knows? We'll have to see. So yeah, all that to say this, guys. I'll start wrapping it up now. I think the competitors are actually happier with a smaller amount of leaders to worry about. So that's kind of where I'm going with that, is if the biggest concern with OP13, you know, the reason that it might, you know, be dying or something like that, quote unquote, is like, well, yeah, only like 3 or 4 leaders can be played right now. It's like, well, competitors are like, oh, whew, thank goodness, right? Because that's less to prepare for. And that, you know, it's less to worry about when it comes to variables and, you know, variants and stuff like that, where it's like, okay, I just went into a totally meta matchup that I can't win, and now I'm just going to lose automatically. Right. So I see where they're coming from too. And let me just say all this now to bring it all back together. I think casual players will be fine. I think the collectors are going to be completely fine. They're probably the least affected by all this as long as the game doesn't die off, right? And then, of course, the competitors, I think they're going to be pretty fine with this too. If there's less decks to worry about out there, if there's just like 3 or 4 or maybe even 5 major decks to be concerned with at the highest levels of competition. So yeah, that's just my take on it, guys. I try to keep an open mind. I do understand the negative things people are saying about OP13. I get it. Guys, I'm a rogue deck builder. I think the rogue deck builders are the most affected by this. The more casual rogue deck builders, they're the ones who will be affected the most. People like me. And hey, I'm still fine with it because there are some leaders that I think can still get the job done that are off meta. And you know, hey, that's like our plight, right? And it's fine to complain about things. I think it's fine to complain about things, but I don't think everything's all doom and gloom. I don't think it's like, you know, the sky's falling or whatever. I don't think we're at that point right now with One Piece. Who knows? I'm going to leave it there, guys. Tell me what y'all think about it in the comments section below. Let's just please keep it peaceful. Guys, play nice down there, okay? Be nice down there. I don't want to have to send anyone to detention. I'm just kidding. No, but seriously. All right, hope y'all enjoyed, guys. I'm going to leave it all there. Tell me what y'all think in the comment section below. Hope y'all enjoyed, like I said, and I'm done. Till next time, guys. Peace.